Hello internet, this video is for Bulma and for Bulma only. Just kidding, Vegeta. You can watch too. I can't remember my script, so I will be reading it right here. Don't worry about it. Very recently, I decided to finally become familiar with one of the biggest franchises in the world, Dragon Ball. Nice! I have very faint memories of the Dragon Ball series from when I was a kid. I mean, I feel like it is impossible to have never heard of any of the franchise's characters. I mean, I think my first sentence was, "I was the perfect warrior, cold and ruthless!" But for some reason growing up, it just never grabbed me. Now, when I tell you I had never seen Dragon Ball, I really mean it. I think I played one of those games on the Game Boy Advance for a couple of minutes, and I even had one of those weird Boo house things.
And I've had two.
That was about all I knew. I thought the scene where Goku turned into an ape was Gohan. I legit thought Boo was Piccolo. Nice, calm. I didn't even know that the original Dragon Ball series followed Goku as a kid. What a cutie pie, by the way. So last year, when the original creator of Dragon Ball, Akira Toriyama, did pass away, it really struck a chord in me. I had never seen this series that millions upon millions of people just adore, and I wanted to know why. And after watching Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super in the span of like 3 weeks, it sort of changed my life. So for this video, I thought it would be cool to try and recreate one of my favorite scenes from a Dragon Ball Super movie, Battle of the Gods. There's just something about Goku and his red hair. I like it. It gets me going. Don't worry about it. But I wanted to try to recreate it in the OG Dragon Ball Z style. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know that I really like to use Blender. I'm a huge fan of it being an open source software that anyone can use. And since I've never really done anything like this 2D animation stuff, I thought, why don't I use a software that I already know? So I coughed up some big bones and I got a nice new fancy animation tablet. Then I spent quite a bit of time watching grease pencil tutorials on YouTube.
This is
What?
This is boring.
Approaching 2D animation like this felt so much more accessible than it ever has before, at least for me. But it also helped me appreciate the work that animators do so much more. I think I also love Dragon Ball so much because it just inspired me to get back into 2D animation as well. This has been a passion of mine that I've never really pursued, but I've always held close to my heart. And in my opinion, this is the most patient but rewarding medium that I think exists today. Let's get into it.
This is a bath?
Look at you! You're supposed to cover up the front!
Like this?
I had debated at first between watching Dragon Ball immediately or just going right into Dragon Ball Z, and every single one of my friends told me that I didn't have to watch Dragon Ball. What a goddamn load of horseshit. I really didn't think I was going to like this. There was just something about the animation style from afar that seemed a little too dated to me. For some reason thought the stakes weren't going to matter. And then something happened. You're in 5, 6, 7 episodes, and you just fall in love with Goku. At least I did. Kid Goku will always have a very special place in my heart. He's even my keychain. And I did fall in love with Dragon Ball, but let me tell you, this is a horny show. And it was really fun kind of learning where all these characters in this world actually come from. I had no idea that the Kamehameha wave came from this part. I thought Goku was going to go Super Saiyan after his first fight with Krillin. I also thought Yamcha was actually going to do something eventually. And the interesting thing about Dragon Ball is it came out in the 80s. It utilized primarily hand-drawn cell animation. Entirely hand-drawn animations at this time were just the industry standard. Keeping all this in mind, I am very grateful that that is not what we have to do today, especially as I am trying to learn how to do 2D animation.
This is going to be so cool!
Once I started Dragon Ball Z, I immediately got it. I could not wait to see Goku going Super Saiyan for the first time. My mind exploded when it did. Gohan Super Saiyan 2 is peak, don't at me.
I won't watch this anymore!
Or something like that. So awesome. I was a little disappointed. I thought Krillin was the main character of Dragon Ball Z, but what are you gonna do? So Dragon Ball Z was still predominantly made through the cell animation process, but the industry began to implement and transition into more hybrid workflows, blending hand-drawn but also early digital techniques into their final product. Things like digital coloring and basic compositing. We start to see more complex choreography and visual effects for the energy blast and just the glowing aura that is the entire show. To me, this is the golden era of animation. I really do think that some of the best stuff that humans have and will ever make are based in creative boundaries. Dragon Ball GT. I have not watched Dragon Ball GT. And you are getting very sleepy, forgetting that I have not watched Dragon Ball GT.
I will not let you destroy my world!
Dragon Ball Super is fun. I saw a lot of people hating on it, and I get it. It's a little contrived. They retcon a lot of the awesome stuff that we get in the original series, but let's admit it, it's fun. It's cool. I mean, it's an anime. Since when did anything in those ever make sense? But what's cool about Dragon Ball Super is it came out in roughly 2015, which means fully digital production became the standard for 2D animation. Now that we got all of that out of the way, let's try to recreate a shot. I'm pretty new to the 2D animation workflow, so for the sake of time and experimentation, I decided to trace Goku and Barris's movements.
My disappointment is immeasurable.
I'm not entirely proud of this, and some people might find this to be controversial, I get it. But I can say that it wasn't entirely one-to-one, since some frames needed to be recreated on my own. They were distorted or blurred out in post, and I guess I'm kind of proud to say that they don't look that bad. For future attempts, I would love to animate these characters in my own weird, twisted art style. But for this clip, I wanted to make sure that it looked as close to Akira Toriyama's vision as possible. So just to trace Goku and Barris alone, that took me around 4 hours. And I'll admit, even at this point, your boy was starting to feel it. I was tired. I almost gave up. I almost thought about not doing it at all. I really did. But you know what? Then I thought about you. Yes, you, Danny. You. And I decided to keep on going. But seriously, the more progress that I made, the more I realized how insane this is. It takes so long. One thing I noticed that really gravitated me towards this scene was this small detail here. If you look closely, you can tell that there is a jitter happening moments after impact, but the character is not being redrawn. I figured out my own way to recreate this was to keyframe the position of my drawing just a little bit, and I kind of just learned this really cool new trick just by studying the shot that I was recreating, which I thought was pretty cool. Maybe I can animate. Wait, what? You said coloring was going to take even longer? Okay, so I didn't realize that I would need to color every single frame that I drew, one by one, for every part of both illustrations.
Nice, calm.
Maybe I did this wrong. I don't know. I'm sure there's a better way to do this, but that's honestly okay. I found something kind of meditative about just tapping colors into Goku's hair and Barris's clothes. And the fill tool in Blender works fine, but there still is quite a bit of artistic choice that you have to take to make sure that it looks good enough, so that was fun. At first. It had been about 6 hours since I started this shot. Oh, 6 days, oh my god. It had been about 6 days since I started this shot, so roughly 7 hours of work. And I hadn't even started coloring in Barris.
What? That is crazy.
The mental toll that this sort of process takes on someone is exhausting. No, it's torturous.
Evil, malignant.
More words that mean bad. It had felt like I had spent days on something that wasn't even 50% finished. I was starting to lose hope. Again, and remember how I said in the last part that I almost called it? Well, this was actually the part where I almost called it. But I'll admit, I'm really happy that I didn't do that. I took a full day break, and I found a groove. I was able to punch in the rest of Goku and Barris's colors in about 3 hours. It was really cool that at a certain point, I didn't even need to look at any tutorials anymore on Blender. I just knew exactly what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. It just took some time and patience. At this point, we had just hit the 10-hour mark. I honestly was already pretty proud of this and was ready to call it a wrap. But something just snapped.
Something inside of me.
I knew we could crank this up a notch. So in one of the tutorials that I watched, I learned how to mask certain layers in Blender's grease pencil. This allowed me to freely color in darker tones onto my animation without bleeding outside the lines. I feel like there's a word for that, and I just said the definition of it. Before I had even realized it, I was adding shading to my first animation. And I know I seem really excited about this, but yeah, maybe I'm just way too excited about this. But this part of the process became addictive. It felt like every frame that I detailed, it was bringing me one step closer to something that I could feel legitimately excited about. My experience last year watching Dragon Ball for the first time was nothing but exciting. And I will never be the same. all of my children will be named Goku. And I didn't even really mind the filler episodes either for some reason. I think it's because the world and characters are just so alluring. I mean, yeah, whatever. Piccolo and Goku are learning how to drive. Let's see it, who cares? But I had never actually anticipated it being this good. I mean, I knew it was popular, but it truly is a well-written, funny, and engaging story that I think deserves to have the praise that it does. I found myself being hooked into all of these series immediately. Even in 2024, I thought, this is one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. I'm so happy that I understand the jokes and the references now, and I'm even more happy that I learned so much about animation while making this video for you. And sure, it took way too long. There's a part of me that would love to create an even longer, more fleshed out scene now that I have a lot more comfortability using Blender's 2D animation suite. But I wanted to celebrate this milestone and just post my work in progress anyways. And oh my god, my first million. Do it and do it again.
Nice car.